Hey there guys, welcome back. This is another Raven or Crow magic, but we'll call it Raven for the sake of continuity, although there's probably more Crow energy within this. So this is a spell work that you can do for connecting to Crow energy, and it particularly has the divinational side of things, which is why we can use Raven and Crow quite interchangeably, because both have messages from the divine, both help us to seek inwardly, both help us to really tap into our subconscious, and it's all about messages and things of that nature. So this is for finding your higher purpose, connecting with Raven or Crow energy. Something to do before a big session of divination, and as we're coming up on the dark half of the year, as Samhain rapidly approaches, this would be the perfect sort of work to be doing around that time as well. But seeing as we have just discussed Raven magic and some of the messages and things, I wanted to do this spell while that was fresh in mind. We're as zoomed out as I can get. I'm going to try and move around a little bit because it's actually slightly larger than the camera will allow, and I'm going to discuss everything in quite some depth. Okie dokie. Right, let's go over the whole thing and I'll show you what is actually made up. So we're going to zoom in for the time being. Maybe a little bit of moving the camera around. So the setup goes thus. We have a dark purple, and it is dark purple, I hope that's going to come through, candle in the centre. I've put that in a little glass dish because if then you wish to burn the candle, it's not going to get on your crystals or on your cards or anything else. We have 4 points of quartz, and you're not going to be able to see the top one, but there's one here, one there, one there, one there, and then 4 labradorite, here, 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 and here. And then as we zoom out a little bit more, there are 4 tarot cards from my particular decks. This one is from the Marielle, which is the Queen of Swords. There is the King of Swords from the Shadowscapes, the Hierophant from Wild Unknown, and the Page of Swords from Shadowscapes as well. Then we have 4 wildcrafted, gifted to me crow feathers, and then 4 more points of labradorite. So I'm going to just, you can see the top one there, and then if we move down you can see that there is one here. The 2 at the sort of top and bottom are the larger ones for the sake of direction. Okay, so at the very centre we have one of Nadia's actually, Deep Knowledge purple candles, and I went with purple so that it represents the realm of spirit, and that is particularly important to this setup, and in my opinion should not be altered for any other colour for this particular setup. And then we have 4 quartz and 4 labradorite. So quartz are amplifiers, and they are best used in that sense, in my opinion. That's what I use quartz points for, to rev up the energy, the spell work of what we are trying to achieve. Then there are 4 labradorite. Now if you don't have labradorite, you can also use smoky quartz. Those are the 2 crystals which I said in the Raven video that I most associate with the Raven Crow magic, and explained why in that video. But I've picked labradorite because it is the crystal that I adore. It is probably, as I have grown, it has become my spirit crystal. The crystal that I connect most with ravens and crows, but of Morrigan as well. Of shape-shifting, of magic, of the shaman, of the psychic gifts, which is what the spell work is about. It also allows no negative energy into this spell working at any point. Smoky quartz will do all of those things for you, of course, as well. So there are 4 quartz and 4 labradorite at first, in the first section, and 4 is all things in one, the 4 elements. And that is why it's important to me to have the purple candle in the centre, because that makes the 4 elements in terms of numerology, and then with spirit surrounding with the central focus. Or 4 elements surrounding spirit, depending on how you wish to see it. It also has a strong energy of the earth to ground us in receiving messages, to ground us in the earth, in the present, and keep us balanced and safe when seeking messages which are in nature quite ethereal, quite astral, quite abstract. It brings the grounding energy back into the spell work, the divination, and creates a solid base for us to start at. Then of course you have another 4 points of labradorite on the outside, making 8. 8 here for me is infinity on its side. So it is the way that the crow or raven looks at time in its flowing state, seeing past, present and future as one. It is the interconnectedness of all things. It is helping us to connect to the infinite, the divine, and receive messages from the divine in all forms. There are of course 4 crow feathers. I think it's important to use feathers which you have received from the goddess in this instance. I would never personally buy crow feathers because you don't know how they were obtained. If you didn't have any at all, I would probably rather use fake than bought. Personally, it's just my feelings on it. You know, I don't know, but that's how I feel about it really. And then we have the 4 tarot cards. So we have the Hierophant, the Page of Swords, the Queen of Swords, and the King of Swords. The swords make up 3 of the 4, and therefore they sort of represent the divine. Maiden, Mother, Crone, Warrior, Father, Sage. And the swords are of the realm of air, which of course is the realm of ravens and crows, as well as being about intellect and discernment. And we want to be able to receive the messages from the divine and be able to properly process them on an intellectual level, to not lose our heads, to be able to hear those spoken messages from the realm of air that crow or raven brings to us, and fully, acknowledge and hear them in a very sort of, hearing messages and things of that nature is very much associated with air, with the vibrations and things in the air, in the physical, intellectual side of things, and to understand and process those. What we then do with them is then balance all elements into them, and that's why 4 is also here, because 4 is also the representation of all elements. So it's at first to acknowledge them through the messenger, through air, and crow being and raven being animals of air, birds of air. It seemed like those elements most interlinked with which tarot set to go with, as well as the fact that obviously these cards already had ravens or crows present on the imagery, which helps of course. So the Hierophant is down here. Now the Hierophant is closest to us, where I'm sitting, and the Hierophant is about receiving messages from the divine, and therefore he is of the major arcana, so he is separate in that sense. He's sort of our link, literally our key into the messages from the divine. He is flashes of illumination, he unlocks the door, he is our link to the messages of the divine, and we have page, queen and king to represent the stages of godhood that our basic understanding puts to things, like I've already said, maiden, mother, crone, father, warrior, sage, and in this case page, queen and king. The queen is at the top opposite the Hierophant, because in this instance, as stated in the Mary L Tarot, the queens create the environment. The kings are more about the mastering of their environment, the master of what they are seeking out to, and I wanted the queen at the top for the creating aspect, because this is spell work and we are creating our own spell, we are creating our own environment in which to receive messages from the divine. All are present, but I wanted her at the top for that reason. So, we have the page here, and she embodies honesty and truthfulness, unafraid to scrutinize her own beliefs. She knows the measure of her own soul. She's unafraid of emotion. There's also the element of the seeking here, and therefore the three page, queen and king are about the creation, the seeking, the creation, and then the mastering. So the page here is about elements of the divine, seeking the messages. The queen, as I've already stated, is at the top, and from the Mary L Tarot, the Queen of Swords creates an environment of mind, an environment with intellectual integrity and truth, where you can develop ideas and freely gather knowledge and wisdom. So it's about creating a space in which you receive messages and start to analyse the messages which you are receiving. And then the king, who has the two ravens, very similar to Odin. I hope you can see it. It's a little bit. Can we zoom in a bit? There you go. You can see he has the two ravens by his feet. So thoughts and memory. Again, receiving messages. I'm just seeing if anything from the book. Well, I think what is interesting from the book is the fact that we have Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, and that is here on the card. I think if I zoom in any more it's going to blur out, so I won't, but it's there, which means the symbolic blending of art and science, the symmetry in the human body and in the whole of the universe. And I think that kind of finishes off the idea of the spell quite nicely, because we've talked about the fact that the spell is supposed to be representative of all the elements in spirit and the divine, and in all its glory and all its sort of stages. I have frankincense and myrrh incense going, which is what I would use for in preparation for this spell work, because of its purifying energies. And frankincense and myrrh, of course, also keys us into a frame of mind, of a way of thinking, a vibration of receiving messages of the divine. It has something mystical and spiritual about it, and it always has, and it cross-culturally it does. So that is the basic setup of the spell. It's also a wheel, which I think is important to note, because of the wheel being quite symbolic of cycles of life and death and rebirth, and the wheel of the year and cycles in general. and therefore sort of tapping into crow raven energies in terms of divination is to tap into their innate ability as fortune tellers, as shapeshifters and bringers of messages who can see past, present and future in the cycle. So I hope you enjoyed this video and its explanation, and how you would then go and utilise the setup, of course, is entirely up to you. Many blessings.